Well, good evening, Hill Country. We are glad you are here with us today as we have a special Good Friday service planned for you.
Come, let us worship our King. Come, let us bow at His feet. He has done great things. See what our Savior has done. See how His love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great things. Lo, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You've been faithful through every storm. You'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things. And I know you will do it again. For your promise is yes and amen. You will do great things. God, you do great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things.
So, hallelujah.
Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Lo, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You have done great things. Oh God, you do great things.
Hey, good evening. Feel free to be seated. Just thought we'd be light here for a moment. It's one of the hardest things for me to get used to in all of this, besides the fact that, I'm always talking to a camera right now as we do church life together, is just what I hope I never get used to, and that's the the lack of people all around us worshiping together. We're made for fellowship. We're made to gather and to worship a saving King. And so tonight, as we remember Good Friday, the best thing we could do is celebrate this together. And so we're going to do that via social media and TV, tuned into YouTube and all the stuff that we can do, and you in your home with the ones you love the most around you. And at the end of the day, we're remembering the hero of heaven. We're going to retell the greatest story ever told, the greatest story ever lived. And so I'm going to read a story called A Garden, a Promise, and a Cross that was written for us tonight. And in the midst of it, we're going to worship Jesus because he's worthy of our worship no matter what's happening in the world around us. And we're going to partake in communion in a little while together. And hopefully you have your elements at home and you can partake with us as we remember what he did on this night thousands of years ago. And if you don't have, if you don't have grape juice, if you don't have wine, and grab some water and some crackers. It's okay. These are different times, and so we can't present them to you, but we want you to partake with us. So I'm going to kick us off with chapter 1, Genesis and a garden. God had a plan, and it was good. Created everything perfect because the only thing he can do is perfect. God made the universe. He crafted earth, and he put this perfect garden right in the perfect spot for humanity. Everything was wonderful. Community was key to God and his desire for us and his creation of us. And so in making man, he made a woman. It's not perfect anymore. Sin did happen early on, and things went south from there. But it is good for us to see it from the start and know how God desired it to be for us from the beginning. He's a creator God who blesses. He owes us nothing, yet he blesses humanity over and over and over again from that day to today and beyond. It's the theme throughout the Genesis story and all of history. So as darkness entered the world through one man's choice, light and life were promised to us. There was a plan for redemption and victory. The first gospel plan was told to us in this garden with the Genesis 3:15 promise. A perfect man would be born. He would be bit by a snake, and then he would crush the head of that snake once and for all. Because he is so very faithful to us, God made a way back to him.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning sea. All I have needed, thy hands have provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hands have provided. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Chapter 2, Snapshots of a Promise. God was always working to save his people. He is just a good father after all. And he loves to use normal, everyday people to care for people. Not only does God love to bless people in spite of themselves, but he also loves to showcase his glory and power by doing amazing things through broken vessels, to show aspects of his character, to showcase his grace and truth. So we have these snapshots of a promised Redeemer, Abraham, who puts his faith in God, not in what he saw or understood on his own. He trusted God with everything. He didn't hang on to what he could work out. Joseph, his life of integrity showcased Jesus to come. He trusted in the most difficult situations because he knew God was orchestrating a promised redemption story. God saved, redeemed, honored, and blessed Joseph even through the hard things. Moses, he was this humble leader who delivered God's people from the stronghold and grip of the enemy. Joshua, this faithful servant who stood against the norms of human logic and courageous faith, and he trusted in God's word. He trusted in in God to be his strength. He knew that his strength came by being in the presence of God. He led God's people like a warrior shepherd to the promised land. King David, he stayed true to who he was, to slay giants and defeat the enemies of God. And like Jesus himself, David was a man after God's very own heart, and he delighted in prayer and worship. All of these men and numerous other people in the Old Testament were small pictures of the promised coming King, Jesus. The book of Hebrews speaks of individuals full of faith who gave us snapshots. These men and women of faith who never saw the complete fulfillment of their belief and faith. Yet they hung on to God's promised word. They did see the victory to come. They knew God's presence, that it surrounded them through the brokenness and weakness and the dark days that come. But they worshiped him with their faithful lives in spite of dark days. Because on the battlegrounds of life, worship is our weapon.
Barely hanging on by a thread of hope, hard to see beyond everything unknown. With your strength I'll stand, it's all I can do. I will lift my hands and sing my way through. 'Cause when I'm broken at my weakest, in my darkest hour, I'll let my worship be a weapon on this battleground. From the depths of the lowest place, I will give you the highest praise, the highest praise. I am hanging on to every word you speak. I can see beyond to the victory. Lord, you never left. Lord, you never change. All my confidence in Jesus' name. 'Cause when I'm broken at my weakest, in my darkest hour, I'll let my worship be the weapon on this battleground. From the depths of the lowest place, I will give you the highest praise, the highest praise. 'Cause of the cross, 'cause the cross put the enemy to shame. 'Cause now my song echoes through an empty grave. Because the cross put the enemy to shame. Now my song echoes through an empty grave. Because the cross put the enemy to shame. Now my song echoes through an empty grave. One more time. Because the cross put the enemy to shame. Now my song echoes through an empty grave. When I'm broken and my weakest, in my darkest hour, I'll let my worship be a weapon on this battleground. From the depths of the lowest place, I will give you the highest praise, the highest praise. 'Cause when I'm broken at my weakest, in the darkest hour, I'll let my worship be a weapon on this battleground. of the lowest place. I will give you the highest praise, the highest praise. Because the cross put the enemy to shame. Now my song echoes through an empty grave. Because the cross put the enemy to shame. Now my song echoes through an empty grave.
Chapter 3, the arrival of a promise. Our salvation stories are told through the larger story of an empty tomb, like we just sang. But for it to get to Easter Sunday, it had to start with Christmas. So one day, a really, really long time coming for them, the planet finally got to experience the arrival of the Genesis 3:15 promise. God's own Son came to live in this world as a real, live person, boots on the ground. It became a fully operational plan on that night. When Jesus arrived on the scene of humanity, everything changed. Love walked among us, and the Word was made into flesh and blood and moved into our neighborhood. Jesus showed us and taught us how to have a full and abundant life, not just to help us survive till we die or wait on heaven. And Jesus said some strong, pointed, and emphatic words as he lived. He is the only way. He is the absolute and only truth. He is life itself. Everything else is false. Yet, while being so adamant with his words and what he was telling us, Jesus was a tender-hearted and compassionate shepherd at the same time, even willing to go look for and seek after the wayward and the far from God to bring us home. Not just them, us. The God who became one of us to save all of us showed us extraordinary love. He spoke words filled with such hope in the midst of the storms of life. Chapter 4, rumors of a cross. As much as his presence among us was spectacular, there was an end goal in mind. That 3:15 promise from Genesis was fully in play now, but in order for the Redeemer to crush the head of that old snake, he had to get bit first. So Jesus lives his life, and as he does, he's teaching. Jesus teaches. He says words that no one had ever heard before, teaching things that no one had ever even contemplated before. It blew their minds. Jesus loved everyone in ways no one else had shown compassion before. Beggars, thieves, the hungry, prostitutes, the lonely, crusty old fishermen, lepers, soldiers, and even religious leaders. No one was outside of his desire to love them and reach them and have compassion on them. And at the same time that he did so much for those around him, Jesus made sure to preview his reason for coming and the way it would all end. People heard it, but no one really got it. His followers were told by Jesus face to face, eyeball to eyeball, as my wife would say. But they were still so confused at what he was saying about a cross. These rumors of a cross just seemed too far-fetched to everyone. So Jesus painted them a picture at the supper table one fateful night. Communion was a short-term preview for them then, and it's a long-term preview for us today. The meal before the cross that we call the Lord's Supper. In Luke 22, it tells us that Jesus took the bread and he gave thanks to God for it. Go ahead and grab your communion elements if you would. We're going to partake right now in what the church has been doing for over 2,000 years together. This is one of our go-to moments as a believing people that we do all across the globe, all throughout the worship services that happen every week, every year, together remembering. And so he took the bread and it says that he broke it. And he broke pieces off and he gave them to the disciples around the table with him that night. And he said, "This bread represents my body broken for you, given to you. I give myself to you now. Take and eat and remember." So take and eat the body represented here. Then it tells us that we read that Jesus took the cup and he pours it to share amongst themselves. And he said, this represents my blood poured out for you. I give it freely. I pour myself out. This new covenant, he said, it's a covenant made in blood between God and man for the forgiveness of sins. Stop and think about that for a moment. That Jesus gave his body and Jesus gave his blood for you. Like he never did anything wrong. And he made me. And I blew it so bad that like he had to come down and die in my place. Because even if I had died trying to get myself back to God, I couldn't. I was too faulty. I was too sinful. I was too messed up. So he had to give his perfect body and give the blood, the royal blood of heaven, to cover my sins. And he willingly chose that for the joy set before him. That's hard to take, yet so beautiful at the same time. And he says it's a new covenant now, and nothing's going to separate you from heaven, from the Trinity God, from the Father, from the Son, from the Spirit. If you will take and drink this and live it out. So we take the cup and we drink it remembering that we are once and for all forgiven of all the rotten, low-down things we've done, all the ignorant things we've done, all the unknowingly sinful things we've done, everything wrong we ever did or ever will do, forgiven because Jesus gave his all. So, Father, I thank you for that preview that Jesus gave us of the body and the blood, the communion table that we remember, the Lord's Supper that we take in remembrance of all that he did for us. I thank you for your willingness to send your Son to die in our place so that we could know you and be with you and experience heaven forever and an abundant life now. And Jesus, it was your glory that was shown on the cross that night. And nothing but your blood can wash away our sins. And so we will worship you now after taking communion together and remembering on this beautiful, scandalous night all that you did for us all those years ago.
My life is yours. 'cause you made this sinner holy and holy. Holy. 'Cause your glory is so beautiful. I fall unto my knees in awe, and the heartbeat of my life is to worship in your light. 'Cause your glory is so beautiful. 'Cause your glory is so beautiful.
My life is yours. My hope is in you only. 'Cause my heart you hold. 'Cause you make this sinner holy, holy, holy. Your glory is so beautiful. Fall onto my knees in awe, and the heartbeat of my life is to worship you in light. 'Cause your glory is so beautiful. Your glory is so
Glory.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Jesus, you are good.
Singing glory.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Jesus, you are good.
So good to us, Lord.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Jesus, you are good.
Oh, yes.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Jesus, you are good.
What can wash? What can wash away my sin? It's nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? It's nothing but the blood of Jesus. Hey, oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. It's nothing but the blood of Jesus. 'Cause you are good. Jesus, you are good.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Jesus, you are good. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Jesus, you are good.
chapter 5. A cross changes everything. After that Last Supper moment, we see that this fateful, scandalous night begins. Betrayed, beaten, and humiliated, the perfect Son of God, condemned to die in the place of sinners. Jesus, executed on a cross. It was all over now. It was the worst thing that ever happened. The saddest day ever. It was the best thing that ever happened. The most joy-filled day ever. I mean, it really and truly was forever over now. A cross changed everything. No one understood when he said it is finished then, but we do now, and we can on this side of the cross. Jesus had a plan. It had always been the plan. It seemed a little strange to choose to die in order to win, but it was the only way to beat Satan, to destroy sin's stronghold on us and death's grip that it had. It was, at the cross, the death of death. The enemy played his hand and he lost. And when that curtain was torn in two in the temple, God was declaring that nothing separates us from him anymore because of Jesus and a cross. On that cross, Jesus took all of our sin on himself, and God punished Jesus for it so we could be free and owe nothing. Horrible and beautiful. But it's only Friday now in our story. Sunday's still coming. The celebration that comes with new life hasn't even happened yet in our story. The heavens and the earth haven't erupted in joy yet. Thousands of years before, a garden. A little while later, a promise because of sin. 2,000 years ago, a cross. A horrible, sad day that we celebrate as a beautiful, joyful moment now. That's why Easter sunrise, the Resurrection Sunday, is so beautiful and so exciting. It really is this beautiful, memorable, joyful, to be treasured moment for us at sunrise on Easter Sunday. So I encourage you, as you remember all that Jesus has done for you, as you remember the story of a garden, a cross, a promise and a cross, that you don't stay there at the cross. The cross changed everything, but for us to live out of that. Easter sunrise, Resurrection Sunday is the time of worship. So I invite you to tune in a couple days from now on Easter morning, 7:08 a.m. for a sunrise, unplugged worship service with us. And then tune in at 10 a.m. for a big Easter celebration service where we are going to worship the risen King Jesus, the resurrected one, never to die again. And because of him, we never taste death or feel the sting of the grave. We breathe here, and then we breathe forever as followers of Jesus because he gave his body and he poured out his blood for us at the cross. You know, we're here for you. I know these are interesting and unique and odd and weird times. A lot of fear, a lot of worry, a lot of doubt the enemy's trying to harass us with. We're here for you. Let us know your needs. Let us know your prayer requests. Let us know what we can do for you. Tune in and be a part of all that we're doing until that day when we can gather again and worship and celebrate with voices crying out at one time that you are worthy, Jesus. This Jesus who went to the cross for you, who died in your place, who calls you to follow him and believe in him and live an abundant life. If you're watching tonight on this Good Friday and you've never made a decision to follow Jesus, you can right now. Romans 10 says that all who call out on the name of the Lord shall be saved. You believe it in your heart and you speak it out with your mouth, and you are saved. That's the beginning of an eternal relationship with Jesus. And from there, we live as disciples to follow him, obey him, worship him, and give him away. If you need someone to pray with you, contact us. We'll give you a call. We'll shoot you a text. We'll email you. We'll even come and talk through your door to you at this time until we can talk face to face. Continue to worship Jesus with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And love others. Love God. Love people, Hill Country Fellowship. You have a fantastic evening, and we will see you on Easter morning.